Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I'm Iris J, and I am chatting with you with this special message for Jupiter coming into Cancer, which happens tomorrow for when I'm filming this, but on June 9th, depending when you are watching this. And I was not actually planning on filming this, so I'm going a little old school, just using my computer. I am hoping that you can hear those waves out there a little bit, because that is working with this water element that Jupiter is bringing us into. And I have another video on kind of speaking more generally about the archetype of Jupiter moving into Cancer. I really want to focus on this very strong message that is coming through as I was sitting with this energy this morning. And this has to do with self-love. Just as I said that, my greatest teacher in self-love and care and presence came and said hi to us. This is Gus. You don't usually get to see him because he's such a big boy. And I'm sitting on the floor because that felt like a little bit more self-care for myself this morning. So he's very, very here with us. And self-love, self-care. So Jupiter is coming into Cancer. So we have a year to learn, and Jupiter is great for learning. Jupiter is one of our archetypes of learning and the teacher and the student and study, and especially understanding in a big way, in a way that connects our own personal journey to truth with a capital T, but through a way in which truth with a capital T is accessed through so many lowercase t's in our own subjective stories and lives, and they entwine, and then somehow they're all working with this kind of greater truth. And that's part of what Jupiter does. And as Jupiter moves into Cancer, and we move through this year with Jupiter in Cancer, we are being asked to lead with a heart-centered path. And I really want to open this to planting some seeds for you to think about self-love and self-care in some new ways. Because so often, self-care and self-love are positioned as a framework of recovery. I've pushed myself too far performing, and so I claim my day, right? I claim my day, and I practice self-care, and I get myself back to hopefully a balance. And maybe I claim a day, or maybe I claim a week, or maybe I claim a year, right? It depends upon our own mental and physical wellness and moments and seasons. And so often it's framed as this practice of self-care so that we can perform to a framework that is, in the West, inherently a framework whose roots are patriarchal and colonial and rooted in power over. And that's kind of the model. It's like we have to perform in this way that actually doesn't nourish the self or community or the earth, is not sustainable, is romanticized in almost every form of mainstream media. And it starts breaking things down. So then we have to kind of practice. And this is where there is a lot of, self-care and self-love is now $1 billion industry. And so often it's being framed in that kind of recovery model. And Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer, it invites us to imagine, and Jupiter is wonderful for the imagination, to imagine lives in which self-love is actually the center. And from that center extends into, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You know what it is? I'm using my serious voice, my teaching serious voice. And so he likes to comfort me when I have my serious voice on. And when we are centered from that place of self-love and self-care, which right there, like check in, is there any part of yourself that has been taught that that's selfish? Is there any part of yourself that has been taught that if I were to center my life from self-care and self-love, that that's selfish? And just notice that, okay? Because when we're working with the archetypes, especially in the cosmic symphony that we are part of right now, this is a self-love that is soul-driven. And we're getting messages about that right away with Jupiter entering into Cancer, because it involves a full moon, a Sagittarius full moon, in which Jupiter squares the nodes, in which the moon in Sagittarius trines Mars and Chiron and Eris, who's there to help us disrupt systems that aren't healing us. Chiron and Eris together. Us being our individual selves, and then also the collectives that we're part of. And then Jupiter squares Saturn and Neptune. So there are all, there's a lot of this first few breaths, weeks of Jupiter in Cancer that suggests that this is about soul alignment. And this is about how our souls are here in this life, in this plane. And that is intentional. And we're not trying to bypass this plane and simply go live in another dimension. That dimension has to fuse with what's here. And that is what the Saturn and Neptune transit is all about, and creating new realities here that integrate out there. And so it's not selfish. Cancer teaches us that in order for me to nurture others, I need to nurture myself. And usually anyone with really strong Cancer in their chart does have to go on a bit of a reclaiming journey to self-parent, to work with what some people work with as inner child, to self-nourish, so that I can sustain my own emotional presence and then be nurturing and nourishing to others. And so this Jupiter shift into Cancer wants us to be at home with love, wants us to learn. We've had Jupiter in Gemini. Which has been expanding ideas, plans, thinking, communities, work, what we can really think about, and probably and sometimes too much. And it's like now the ideas that were meant to work with us, they want to get integrated into ways that are nourishing to us and to others. And the other ideas, okay, and you might find as Jupiter comes into Cancer that some of these projects that you had going or you were thinking about, they might not be meant to go much further. And some of them absolutely will be. The ones that we're here to take right away, there's a Sagittarius full moon square the nodes, and there's Jupiter squares Saturn and Neptune. The ones that we're here to take are the ones that are going to connect us to our soul and our heart path. And so here, self-love is not about recovery. I mean, we need self-love for recovery, especially when we're in burnout and we're working with it, right? But we're working to change paradigms. The outer planets are working with us to change paradigms over these years. And one of those paradigms is that we are not simply here to perform in order to achieve power over and fit into a system that was only designed to benefit a very small few. And has really folks just climbing and clawing to get into that 1% so that they can be the ones that are benefiting, and they can now be in the media world extensions of corporate advertising, which is what sponsorships is, and social media, and it doesn't change systems. And so here we get to pull back, and in pulling back from those systems, from those belief structures, we get to expand our heart space and feel into what is really nourishing here and now. Always so important to emphasize that this is here and now, especially because we are dreaming new dreams. And they might weave through old dreams, or they might be like a new version of yourself. And what's nourishing? What would it mean to live a life of self-love every day? What would it mean to have a life in which self-love is actually a constant source of creativity and energy to pour in to the things that you love and are passionate about, to pour into community, to pour into your business, to pour into your work, to pour into your kids, to pour into the earth? Because we're doing it through a loving relationship instead of performing in a way that is a system that was set long ago and wasn't about sustaining love ever. Ever. And so we already have that wisdom of love within us. We're born with it. And life and social structures and intergenerational trauma and family childhood trauma, it conditions us to usually turn away from that innate abundance of love in all different complicated ways, and yet it's always here. And so Jupiter in Cancer can help us reconnect with that in a way that's coming through this new cycle of Jupiter going through the zodiac. So it's building off of some of the birth of these Gemini ideas and projects and connections that have happened in the past year. And it wants to take the ones forward that are going to help us connect to our soul's home in this emotional body, in this physical body, in this life, which also extends to chosen family, family of origin, healing ancestry, our physical home. All of that is Cancer. And Cancer also craves safety. It craves love. And self-care and self-love are absolutely about creating that safety for ourselves with each breath, with each shift, and also being honest that what feels safe can change and that that's okay. If we're working with complicated triggers, that's probably going to change depending where we are from day to day, from month to month, from year to year. Water flows, and our emotions do know how to flow. And so leaning into emotional wisdom, to the heart, it has a lot to offer us. And so really shifting that paradigm of self-love to the soul path. We're still going to have to do things that we don't really want to do. We're still going to have to pay taxes and show up and do things. You know, it's not about it just being this fairy tale of everything goes well. Astrology, like, if that's how we're approaching it, don't go into astrology. Astrology is not here to promote that kind of like spiritual bypassy Disney fairy tale thing. It shows us that we come to this plane and there are so many different experiences that we're going to have, and that they're all part of the soul's evolution and growth, and ultimately return home, which Cancer is always about. So with that, Gus and I bid you a joyous welcome to Jupiter entering Cancer, to us coming home to ourselves in new ways, whatever that next year of a journey looks like. And I will see you soon. Be well.